And this is the part of summer where sports stops dragging. Baseball hits the trade deadline. We can start thinking about playoffs with the Yankees and the Mets. And yes, football dives into training camps. I'll talk to Jets running back Michael Carter coming up in the show. But first, the Giants have a new GM. They have a new head coach and a new direction? Question mark. Pat Leonard of the Daily News is here to talk Big Blue and answer all the questions that we have about the Giants. And boy, Pat, do we have a lot just a few days in. And the caveat I'm going to put out there, an old coach told me, everyone's a Pro Bowler, everyone's an All-Star, everyone's a Hall of Famer when you're not wearing pads.
Well said.
So they get the pads on starting tomorrow.
That's right.
So what can you tell about this team under Brian Daboll so far? No pads, 4 days in.
Well, that they are being coached harder than I think you might have anticipated in the spring, because Daboll and Schoen, they come in as a new GM and coach, a lot of smiles, a lot of happiness and handshakes, a new day. But remember, Brian Daboll is a guy who came from New England, coached at Alabama, and we've seen early on in camp, John, that he's not going to tolerate mistakes with substitutions, that he doesn't want to see guys rolling up on Daniel Jones in the non-contact jersey. He is barking at players in a positive and constructive way, but in a way that you would expect a first-year coach in a rebuild.
They're not exactly setting expectations high. I mean, the thing that I noticed Wednesday when he and Joe Schoen came out and talked to the media for the first time in training camp was, Brian Daboll used the word, we're crawling here to start. So I think they're maybe trying to understand and help everybody understand what this is, and it's a rebuild.
Yes, there's some realism to the way that they started. You're absolutely right. And I think that they want to pump the brakes a little bit on the expectations because this team is young.
Yeah.
And they, I believe, know what they have inherited here. There are pieces that they like, but I think you're absolutely right. They look at this, yes, the schedule may be favorable, but this is year one of what they hope is a long-term plan towards something, and they have to be understanding and realistic of what this is going to be.
I think the average fan, I think a lot of us look at the roster and say there's talent on this roster.
Yeah.
Is there talent on this roster? I mean, let's start with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Obviously, this is a show-me year for both of them.
Right.
Jones has got to show that he can quarterback a team into the playoffs.
Absolutely. It's a contract year for both of them, basically. And, you look at them drafting a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson, Kadarius Toney getting healthier, Kenny Golladay on the field. I think for Jones, it's only fair, John, that they give him some time with these guys on the field because they weren't on the field in the spring. But it's now or never for number 8.
Yeah, he doesn't have time.
No, and, for Saquon, it's interesting seeing him line up a lot as a receiver. That goes more towards this coaching staff asking players kind of, what are you good at, what do you want to do? But will it all come together very quickly? Because this is one thing, John, that people tell me a lot about Daboll's offense. It's complicated.
Yeah, we just saw a nice ball from Jones to Wan'Dale Robinson. What are we seeing from Saquon Barkley in this camp so far? Because and what is fair to expect to see from Saquon, given all the injuries and everything he's been through?
Well, 2 fumbles, which I don't like, and I know he doesn't like either. And I know he's a harsher critic on himself than I am. But what we're seeing from Saquon is he's taking a leadership role. He's still pretty young, though, and that's kind of what's an odd dynamic of this team, is that a guy like Saquon, who is really in a position where he has to perform, is also trying to take on that role as, like the old dog, even though he's not.
Right.
And so, he's in shape, is what I would say. He's in the best shape of his career, is what it looks like. I talked to a lot of people who said that he wasn't around as much this offseason because he was going to different specialists and trainers taking care of his body. We all know availability has been a problem, so that's been a focus of 26.
It would be great to have Saquon come close to his rookie season and take some of that pressure off of Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
What has Daniel looked like, and how has Tyrod Taylor been looking so far in camp?
Well, Daniel,
by comparison.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Because
I mean,
it's inevitable that the two are going to get compared.
Daniel and the first-team offense has been sloppy. I don't think it's all on the quarterback. Like, protection hasn't held up. You've had drop passes, guys running the wrong routes. He's thrown a couple interceptions. To be expected early in camp, especially learning a new offense, except it's getting late early for this guy, right? And meanwhile, Tyrod Taylor, even though it hasn't been looking like a competition being created, he throws a catchable ball. He appears to throw the ball and push the ball more downfield than Daniel does, and he looks poised when he checks it down. Now, if you're the Giants, what are you trying to get out of the season? You want to evaluate Daniel. But if you want to win more games, are you going to look at Tyrod Taylor at some point and say he can do that better than Daniel can?
Okay, so a couple days into camp, and obviously we're keeping an eye on what's going on in San Francisco. The whole NFL is with Jimmy Garoppolo. There's been some stuff floating out in the ether about Jimmy G and the Giants.
Right.
Is this even a possibility that they would consider?
You know, there would be a reason when you watch the Giants offense on the field early in camp, you say this needs an upgrade. And so when a player like this and a name like this is out there, you say to yourself, why not? But at least as I understand it, the Giants intend to give Daniel Jones meaningful, and that means regular season games, to prove himself with this full set of skilled players and this offensive line. They've already given Tyrod almost $11 million guaranteed to kind of be that guy waiting in the wings. So Jimmy G is not going to happen here. You know, he costs too much money. They'd have to trade money to get him. They'd have to trade draft picks. So even though it is a sexy name, I don't think you should expect Jimmy Garoppolo in a Giants uniform anytime soon.
All right, so one thing that raised a lot of eyes on Wednesday and had the fans that were there watching pretty amped up was Kadarius Toney making a catch. Front corner of the end zone. Acrobatic. You see some of that, and even Daniel Jones got excited talking about what he could mean to this offense. What are your impressions of Toney so far?
He's got crazy talent. I mean, the only guy I see move like him on a football field is Lamar Jackson, honestly. The way he's kind of rubbery and can maneuver each and every way. And honestly, when he went up against, Diggs last year against Dallas and some of these good players, when he was healthy, he's shaking and baking, and they can't stop him. And so he has to stay on the field, though. And obviously in the offseason when he didn't show up and the Giants are calling, looking to possibly trade him, that clearly sent a message because he gets to the facility quickly. He did have the offseason knee procedure, and he didn't participate in the final practice of the week. So clearly they're working him in. But if he's on the field and healthy, he helps them a lot.
All right, let's talk about defense really quick here before we go. Xavier McKinney calling the plays for Wink Martindale. He seems energized by this. He seems excited and enthused out there. What are your impressions of how he can lead this defense?
I think when all is said and done at the end of this year, he might be the best player on the team.
Wow.
And I mean that playmaking, like he's a ball hawk. We've seen that in games. He's intelligent. He's got an attitude.
He's got it.
Exactly. He's one of those guys, too, who knows what it means to be a Giant when the Giants are good and wants to get there quickly. He's used to winning in Alabama. Darnay Holmes, the slot corner, has actually been the standout of camp so far.
Really?
But, yes, he's had 3 picks or 3 turnovers forced. But McKinney calling it back there, I understand why Martindale wants him as the leader with the green dot.
Interesting. All right, so much to keep watching for from camp. Obviously, the rookies, Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau going at it. There's a lot with this Giants team that we're going to have to keep our eyes on going forward, which means you're going to have to come back to Sports Final and update us.
Looking forward to it.
Pat Leonard, I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.